Good morning, everyone. If it's morning where you're hearing this, I am coming from Portland, Indiana, in my humble home studio. Today, in this podcast, we're going to discuss the concepts of left brain, right brain thinking, and how they can actually be broke down into four quadrants: two in the left brain, two in the right brain. This is key in understanding why we are failing at communications, relationships, motivating our children and students, creating an employment environment where people love to come to work and feel valued for their contributions and what they bring to the table. It will also lead to you, once you go through the complete training, in understanding how to take this information and expand your comfort zone. Okay? So let's get started. Okay? Some of you may not be Christians, I understand that, but I want to start with a Christian concept of showing how there are four different regions of the brain. For those who are Christian, you know that in the New Testament there are four Gospels: Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. Okay? Matthew, being the first Gospel normally recorded in order, in that sequence, he determined in his mind that Jesus was a rightful Messiah because he followed a pattern of tradition. For him to be a Messiah, he had to be begotten by. And that whole book of Matthew starts with this elaborate genealogy of Jesus, which in his mind presented the traditionalist justification of why he perceived Jesus as the Messiah. Okay? And then we move to Luke, the physician. Let's compare Luke to being, let's say, the Dr. Spock, the brainiac of the group. He was a physician. When he introduced the concept of Jesus as being the Messiah, he did it from a logical perspective. He wrote, "O Theophilus, I write this unto you that you may obtain and understand that which I have examined myself." In other words, as a scientist, I've looked at the data, I looked at the information, and I came to a logical conclusion, not based on tradition, but based on logic, that he was the Messiah. And then we had John the Beloved. Oh my Lord. No, he's not the Messiah logically or traditionally. He's the Messiah because he had such great love. For God so loved the world, he sent his only begotten Son. He without sin cast the first stone. He's the Messiah based on the fact of this unparalleled level of love that he showed to the world. And then that was Brother Mark, the worst Greek in the New Testament. Not concerned about punctuation or vocabulary or vernacular. He wanted to tell what Jesus did. No, dog, Jesus was Messiah because if you even get bit by a snake, he can hear you. If you drink poison, he can hear you. Man, Jesus did this and Jesus did that. It was all about action for Mark. Not about logic, not about tradition, not about emotion. It was action, the Messiah in action. So it took 4 points of view to report on an incident in a situation observed by 4 different people, and we have 4 different accounts. That's my segue into getting you to understand that that is how our brain operates. Okay? Well, you say, well, how does that work in the brain? Well, we have 2 hemispheres, a left brain hemisphere that we use for logic and organization. We have a right brain hemisphere that we use for emotion and action. That is a personality assessment program that I use, and there are several out there. This is not a silver bullet. Many of you may have taken Myers-Briggs, or you taken the ones where you're named an animal, you're a tiger, leopard, bear, squirrel, or whatever. I use a simplified version from the Insight Learning Foundation called Colors. And they've colorized those 4 hemispheres. So on the left brain, the left side of the brain, they've identified green and gold as the 2 spheres of logic and order. Those of you all who are younger, you do not know who Dr. Spock is, or Mr. Spock on Star Trek. For those that's great like me, you know everything was about logic, okay? For you younger people, you may know Shelton from the Big Bang Theory and the crowd that he hangs out with. Everything is about logic and quantifiable equations, and that's how they navigate life, and if it's not quantifiable, it's not real, okay? So those are your left brain thinkers. Your Shelton's, Mr. Spock, Luke in the Bible. Everything is based on calculating outcomes, analytical approaches that they can come to truth by way of analysis. Let's talk about our gold people on that left side of the hemisphere. You've seen them before. They're the ones that make sure the trains run on time. They are also your prosecutors, your judges, your police officers, your Marines. They don't ask why the rules are there. They could care less. But if you give me a rule, I'm going to make sure that rule is followed. And if any of you have that one person in HR that you have to turn paperwork into, that if you're missing one period, one dotted I, that paperwork is going to get kicked back until you fix it, okay? That's that gold person, okay? They get satisfaction out of following process and procedure. And when you don't follow process and procedure, it's a bad day for them. Now let's move over to the right brain, the part that I like the most, okay? You have blue and orange people. Now your blue people are your touchy-feely people. They make good social workers, kindergarten teachers, nurses, pastors, counselors. And some good examples of blues outside of John that we talked about in the Bible would be Michael Jackson. You know, he was so soft and had a monkey. You know, he loved playing with kids. You know, it was all about the emotions. A lot of artists are very blue. They perceive the world not like the greens through the head. They perceive the world through the heart. If I ask the blue, do you want to go to town this weekend with me? I don't know how I feel about that right now. I'll get back with you. If I ask the green, do they want to go to town? For what reason? If I ask the gold, would you like to go to town? Let me check my schedule and see what I have on that day. I think I've scheduled making a child that morning, so no, I won't be able to go with you. That's on the list to do. So your blues are everything through the heart, greens everything through the head, golds everything based on the schedule. And there's a fourth group that we look at, the oranges. It's all about action and fun and excitement. They love the challenge. They're your risk takers, your entrepreneurs, the people who jump out of airplanes and ride snowboards down a 10-degree mountain at speeds of 450 degrees and say, woo, I made it. I only lost 4 broken necks and bones and arms, and they live by excitement. Now they will go out and slay a dragon, but don't ask them to cut it up, take it to the market, sell it, and make a profit off of it. They are dragon slayers. They are not dragon processors. So these 4 personality types are constantly revolving around us. And when there's friction, we reset the disagreements or the friction into something even more simplistic. We're not even thinking about it. It's just the way we perceive the world. What is our personal comfort zone? We'll say it's a racial issue. We'll say it's a gender issue. We'll say it's an adolescent issue. When in effect, we're asking people to do things that are not within their normal comfort zone, which creates tension. Now you may be able to guess my color by now. My primary color is orange, okay? My secondary color is blue. My third color is green. And my last color is gold. I am not in love with rules and regulations. However, when you go through the training, we're going to teach you how to get out of your comfort zone and appreciate the value that all 4 spheres of the brain bring to life. Because I guarantee you, if everybody was orange primarily like me, a lot of things would not have been invented. A lot of things would have not made it to the processing station. But if you want a warrior, you want someone to go out and slay a dragon, I'm there. But in training, I've learned how to be green when necessary. I want to say be green. I know how to do green when necessary. I know how to do gold when necessary. I know how to do blue when it's necessary. And I know how to do orange when necessary. In the Christian world, we call that being in the spirit. When people have this unbelievable ability to communicate with people from different backgrounds. In the secular world, in the training that Insight Learning Foundation created, Nathan wrote a book called Being in the Nexus. This is the purpose of training, is to get us to understand why is there tension and why can we not get along. It may be gender in some cases, it may be race, who knows? But I guarantee you if we dig deeper, it's going to be in how we are comfortable in receiving information and processing information. Let me give you some examples of everyday life. And let's say we start out in a relationship. There is a wise saying that opposites attract, okay? The scientific truth behind that is if you're one part, say left brain, and you are not comfortable being right brain, sometimes we marry people who use the left brain and right brain because we're fulfilled with each other. What we're doing now is giving a locus of control for that moment where you'll learn about reticular active system throughout the training. We turn off our reticular active system, which tells us what is important and what's not. So we give away that responsibility for being logical and organized if we're right brain, and we give it to the spouse that's organized and logical. And then the organized and logical spouse gives the emotional entertainment side to the other spouse. And then when we ask the left brain spouse to do a right brain item, or a left brain spouse asks a right brain spouse to do some function, we don't understand why it's friction. Don't you understand that? I like to use this example. And I love Star Trek, so y'all are going to get Bible quotes and illustrations. You're going to get Star Trek. You're going to get Marvel. That's where I live, okay? Mr. Spock is the kind of person that would say to his spouse when she asked, do you love me? I told you 3 years ago that I love you. Has any other data or information changed since then? Therefore, you know I love you. Why are you asking me? Now, if that spouse is blue, that spouse needs constant confirmation to develop energy toward believing that my sacrifice I make in this relationship to be compassionate when you're not compassionate is worth it. So I need to hear you say, I love you, okay? A goal person needs to know that you love them based on the fact if you remember the anniversary, if you remember the birthdays, if you remember what was on the schedule to be done this week, and if those things are not remembered and done, all is trouble with Mr. Bubble, okay? That puts a goal person in a state of being de-esteemed. I don't feel valued. Orange people are very simple, okay? Let's just take it to the bedroom, or let's take it to the club, or let's go somewhere and do something. That's why I love you, because we're doing something, I'm touching you and you touching me. End of story. Don't need all that snuggling, I don't need all that, let's plan. If you want to do it, let's get up and go do it. Those are the kind of tensions you find within a marriage, okay? Let's look at our children. Early before we tape this, I did a little commercial about my book. Got to get the plug in, Finding Your 100% on Facebook. I have 2 grandsons living with me. One is in orange, and he does not mind talking. The other one is a green, and he nods his head, okay? Born in the same house, 2 different personalities. How I deal with my orange grandson is totally different than I deal with my green grandson. I explain the logic to him and explain to him why we need to do what we're doing. With my orange grandson, either you do it or I'm going to hit you in the top of the head and not the bottom of your underwear. Go do it, okay? And I can joke with him like that and he will not take it personal. So you have to understand the personalities of your children and approach each one of them in a language that they receive using either logic or scheduling or emotional reassurance or excitement. Now, when you go through the training, you're going to learn how to put all that together, and it's not something that seems unnatural. Whenever I speak, I try to give a logical explanation for my training so that greens hear me. I try to be scheduled and succinct and on point with my time So the goals don't say, oh, you sure ramble on that point. Just get to the point. You made that point 5 minutes ago. Why are you still talking about it? And to my blues, I try to make sure they understand that I'm doing this because I love what I do. I get enjoyment. It gives me emotional satisfaction. And to the oranges, I want them to feel the excitement of what I do and why I do it. So we've looked at how this looks in a relationship. We're looking at this and how it looks when we're raising our children. Let's talk about the workplace. Oh my Lord. Right now in America, we're facing a problem of retaining, training, and keeping new employees. And you cannot figure out why this is a problem. Okay? Number one, your training materials either speak completely to left brain people. They hear the message. And I'm going to tell you, the one group that it doesn't matter how you give it to them, they'll figure it out, are the goals. Because if you cannot organize it and it's not organized, they're sitting there doing training, rewriting your lesson, your presentation, and coming up with a structure that made sense for them. So your goals are very good at reorganizing information, and they can be successful even in the most disorganized companies. Your blues are tuning out because they're not seeing what's in it for them. Your oranges are not seeing what is going to be exciting about this job. Believe it or not, once you get skilled at this, I don't care if you run an assembly line, I don't care if you're doing IT coding, I don't care if you're doing special forces missions. Doesn't matter if your business is bean, bombs, bullet, bras, or Bibles. If you understand how to communicate in those 4 regions of the brain and give a vision that makes sense to those people who are normally in their comfort zones, waiting to receive logic, waiting to receive order, waiting to receive emotional satisfaction, waiting to be called into action. When you speak in all 4 of those languages, you can make any of those jobs be exciting and people being willing to come to work because you have talked to them in a way that they understand what's in it for them. Okay, you're going to get some slides in the future that are going to talk about. Now, this is my impromptu training item. The only thing I remember about geometry is a universal set where 2 circles overlap and you find commonality. Okay? Going through this training, you will learn how to take people with 4 different concepts, overlap all 4 in a region that you can colorize, and they will understand what's in it for them that gives them satisfaction. When you become skilled at this, you'll be highly successful in increasing your retention rate. You will increase the efficacy and the commitment of your employees. Your leaders will be better at communicating new concepts. Give you an example. If my job has been in human resources when COVID hit, and I was responsible for making sure timesheets got turned in, policies were updated, and now because we don't have enough employees, you added to that I had to do Zoom calls with people and communicate with them. Well, that's not my comfort zone. I'm comfortable behind a computer screen, manipulating numbers and figures, and now you want me to get in front of a computer screen with a camera and communicate with people, okay? And there was no preparation in getting me to understand why I need to expand my comfort zone, and even why you think I could do it. And if I become efficient and effective at it, what's in it for me? What's in it for the company? Why didn't you choose someone else? So whenever we know and understand people's concepts in their mind, the regions that they will operate from, you have to introduce your new concept in a language that they understand. And then you have to create a picture and a vision of them achieving that through acquisition of new skills, being willing to get out of their comfort zone, which has a start point when you set a goal. To get out of comfort zones, you got to set a goal. We're going to talk about this in the next podcast. I'm teasing you right now. But trust me, I'm going to teach you how to move from your comfort zones and expand your concept, and you will either be in the nexus of the spirit by the time you get through with these workshops, okay? So, family, individual relationships, spouses, children, employees, and let's not leave out academia. we have lost so many kids in academia because the majority of teachers and administrators are going to be left brain. The majority of kids who get in trouble are right brain, in need of emotional reassurance and to be constantly brought into a state of excitement about learning. And for years we have taught to one concept, one side of the brain. Teach, test, teach, test. Right side people teach, test, reteach, retest. So I have been extremely effective in working with kids that nobody else can reach because number one, regardless of your color and side of brain you use, all of us want to know that you see me, that you value me. So it doesn't matter if I'm working with a blue, green, orange, or gold student, I value them. I value their logical approach. I value their need for structure. I value the need for emotional reassurance. I value the need for excitement. And in a classroom, I will speak to all four of those, and I will create an environment that validates those points of views and put them in situations where they have to come out of their comfort zones and value and appreciate others that see the world different. That is the purpose of these podcasts and the training that we're setting up concerning finding your 100%, okay? We need to expand comfort zones. We need to increase our value and appreciation for those who see the world different and understand why, so that we can have a productive conversation about disagreements that we have, okay? Remember, finding your 100% is not a destination. It is a process. Patrick McConaughey made a statement that you should live like a ship without a port. That finding your 100% is moving from one level of success to the next level of success to the next level. Never being satisfied with one accomplishment, but continually setting goals that makes you a more productive and capable person, so that when life throws you those curveballs, when none of this stuff seems to be working, you have the resilience to push forward. Come back for this next podcast, and we're going to talk about getting out of your comfort zones, getting those left brain people and right brain people together, and moving forward and creating this massive amount of energy for productivity and relationships with children, with our workplace, and in our academic environments. Stay tuned.